Have you ever walked into a room, like completely misjudged the distance to a piece of furniture, bumped hard into a wooden table, and immediately, without even a second thought, blurted out an apology to it?
Oh, yeah. Just offering this deeply heartfelt, completely automatic, I'm so sorry, to a piece of inanimate wood.
Right. And it sounds so absurd when we say it out loud,
Yeah.
I mean, the table obviously doesn't care. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have a concept of personal space.
No, it definitely doesn't.
Yet, if you are listening to this right now and kind of nodding along, you know exactly the phenomenon we are talking about. You've probably apologized to a chair, or, oh, here's a classic, to someone who stepped on your foot.
Yes. Or apologizing to a waiter when you're asking them to correct an order that they actually got wrong in the first place.
Exactly. It's like we treat our own presence in a room as this continuous, low-grade inconvenience that just requires constant verbal acknowledgement.
It really is a fascinating habit, and honestly, it's quite revealing.
It is. And that specific behavior, that instinct, is the mission of today's deep dive. We are looking at a really interesting source today. It's from an English learning program called Skillify English.
Right. Hosted by a really warm, insightful duo, John and Neha.
Yeah, John and Neha. And they create content specifically for B1 and B2 level English learners. But in one of their sessions, they tackle a topic that goes, well, way beyond just grammar and vocabulary. They call it the apology reflex.
The apology reflex, it's such a perfect term for it.
It really is. So today, our goal is to explore why this deeply ingrained, almost physiological habit quietly erodes our self-esteem over time. And more importantly, how we can use a radically simple linguistic shift to build unhesitating confidence.
And what's so brilliant about looking at this through the lens of language learners is that it strips the behavior right down to its mechanics, you know? It forces us to ask, why do we deploy the word sorry when we haven't actually done anything wrong?
Right. What purpose is that word even serving?
Exactly, because the sources reveal that this isn't actually about being overly polite, it's a defense mechanism.
So if you are someone who constantly feels the need to apologize just for taking up space, this deep dive is entirely for you. Okay, let's unpack this, because John and Neha point out that we often apologize for completely baseline, normal human behavior.
Like asking a reasonable question, or sending an email, or literally just existing in a space.
Yeah. So to fix the habit, we first have to understand the psychology behind why it happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are the subconscious signals it sends to our own brains?
Well, let's look at the underlying psychology there. When we apologize for completely normal behavior, like saying sorry to bother you, when you are just doing your job and asking a colleague a standard question, we tell ourselves that we are smoothing over the social interaction.
We think we're being nice.
Right. We think it makes us appear accommodating, friendly, collaborative. But from a sociological standpoint, it functions very differently. It is actually an act of submissive posturing.
Submissive posturing. Wow. So the sorry becomes like a shield rather than an actual expression of remorse.
Precisely. Because in the sociology of space, there is this whole concept regarding who feels entitled to occupy physical and conversational room.
Right. Who's allowed to be there without asking permission.
Exactly. So when you apologize just for speaking, your brain isn't processing that as politeness, it's processing it as an appeasement response. And this is often triggered by a slight spike in cortisol, the stress hormone.
Oh, interesting. So it's an actual physical stress reaction.
Yeah. You perceive the threat of being perceived as, too much or demanding or annoying, and your amygdala fires off a reflex to neutralize that threat. Hence the apology reflex. It fires before your brain even registers whether an apology is genuinely warranted.
Man, that brings up a deeply personal memory for me, just hearing you say that. A few years ago, I had to give this major Q3 strategy presentation at work.
Okay, setting the scene. High stakes.
Very high stakes. I had spent weeks on this slide deck. I knew the data inside and out, upside down. I walked up to the front of the room, looked at everyone, and literally the very first words out of my mouth were, sorry, I know we're short on time, and sorry, these slides are a bit dense.
Oh no, you pre-apologized for the presentation.
I pre-apologized before I even clicked the title slide.
And how did the room react to that? I mean, energetically.
It completely deflated my authority in an instant. I could feel it. I essentially told a room full of executives, hey, please lower your expectations and please forgive me for making you listen to me.
That is such a painful but perfect illustration of what the Skillify English hosts describe. They use one of the most evocative metaphors I've heard for this.
Oh, the slippers metaphor.
Yes. They argue that when you start your sentences with an apology, your voice sounds like it is wearing slippers instead of shoes.
Wearing slippers instead of shoes. That paints such a vivid picture, doesn't it?
It really does. Think about it. Slippers, shuffle. They're soft. They're quiet. They are literally designed not to make a sound on the floorboard so you don't disturb anyone.
Right. You wear them so you can sneak around your own house in the morning without waking anyone up.
Exactly. So when your language is wearing slippers, when you approach a colleague and say, "Hi, sorry, if you don't mind," your voice sounds fundamentally unsure if it is even allowed to step into the room.
You're tiptoeing around your own life.
We're tiptoeing. That's exactly it.
And this verbal tiptoeing is just rampant in professional settings. Like John, one of the hosts, he points out how often people write, "Sorry for the late reply," in emails.
Oh, constantly.
And they'll write that when they were maybe an hour behind. That isn't a late reply. That is just doing your job while prioritizing other tasks. But we load that everyday communication with so much guilt.
Which leads to a severe compounding psychological toll. And I think this is the crucial part to understand. Every single unnecessary sorry sends a measurable subconscious signal to your own brain that you were in the wrong.
It's like you're continuously gaslighting yourself into thinking you've committed an offense.
You really are. You are telling yourself that your needs are a burden and that other people's comfort is categorically more important than your right to occupy space.
And if you do that thousands of times, across days and weeks and years,
it accumulates. It causes a genuine, measurable erosion of that quiet inner confidence that makes authentic, unhesitating communication possible. You are actively training your brain to view your very existence as a continuous trespass.
Man, a continuous trespass. It is like carrying around this heavy, invisible weight of apologizing just for existing. But, beyond the internal damage, I keep thinking about an external consequence to this.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like verbal background static. If we are constantly apologizing for everything, just pumping sorries into the atmosphere, doesn't that sheer volume completely dilute the genuine power of a real apology? When we actually make a mistake?
Oh, absolutely. That is the tragic irony of the apology reflex. By overusing the word to manage our own social anxiety, we completely strip it of its actual utility.
Right. It just becomes noise.
It becomes noise. You are training the people around you to take your apologies less seriously. If you apologize to the barista for their mistake, and then later you apologize to your partner for a genuine breach of trust, you have bankrupted your own emotional currency.
The word just loses all its gravity. Okay, so we recognize the damage caused by these sauce slippers. We see how it erodes confidence and dilutes meaning. How do we fix it? How do we put our confident shoes back on?
Well, this is where the sources move from the problem into a highly practical two-step psychological trick. It's essentially a linguistic upgrade.
And the beauty of this approach is its accessibility, right?
Right.
Because John and Neha are teaching English learners, they focus on strategies that are clear, actionable, and immediately usable.
Yes. Step one in their framework is fundamental, and that is catch the reflex.
Catch the reflex, which honestly is much harder than it sounds. Because a reflex, by definition, bypasses conscious thought, like kicking your leg when the doctor taps your knee.
It does. A reflex is an automatic, instinctive behavioral response. In this context, the apology has become so deeply conditioned that it fires before your brain has even registered if an apology is warranted.
So how do you catch something that happens before you even think about it?
You have to start observing your own physical triggers. Notice that tight feeling in your chest or that sharp automatic breath you take right before you diminish yourself. When you feel the apology bubbling up, you pause, just for 1 single second before it escapes your mouth.
And in that 1 second of silence, that pause, you move to step 2. Flip the script. You replace the word sorry with the words thank you.
This is the core of it. This is where we shift from just identifying the problem to actively rewiring the brain.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the Skillify hosts provide these incredibly clear, elegant B1 to B2 level examples that instantly change the dynamic of a room.
The reframes are so practical.
They really are. Let's say you walk into a meeting a few minutes behind schedule. Instead of rushing in, breathless, projecting chaos, and saying, "Oh, sorry, I'm late. Sorry, so sorry," you catch the reflex. You walk in, you smile, and you say, "Thank you for waiting."
The entire atmospheric pressure of the room changes when you do that.
It does. The energy completely shifts. Or, let's say you've been speaking for a while, explaining a complex idea. Instead of shrinking back, looking down and saying, "Sorry, I know I'm talking too much," you simply pause, make eye contact, and say, Thank you for listening.
It's so much more commanding. And in those emails we discussed earlier, instead of the classic dreaded sorry for the delay, you type thank you for your patience. Or instead of sorry, I should have known that, you say thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, let me push back on this a little bit, though, because I can hear people wondering about this.
Sure, go ahead.
Isn't there a risk that constantly saying thank you just replaces one robotic script with another? I mean, if I am genuinely an hour late to a critical meeting and people have been sitting there frustrated, staring at the wall, does greasing in and saying thank you for waiting risk sounding completely dismissive?
Oh, that is a vital distinction to make, and I'm glad you brought it up. This framework is absolutely not about avoiding accountability when you have caused real hardship.
Right. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Not at all. If you miss a major deadline or you leave your team stranded for an hour, you owe them a sincere heavyweight apology.
Okay, so we aren't using gratitude to dodge responsibility.
No, we are using it to recalibrate the 99% of daily interactions where you haven't actually dropped a ball. The neurological shift between guilt and gratitude is profound. When you say sorry for a minor delay, you are centering your own inadequacy.
You're highlighting your flaw.
Exactly. It spikes your cortisol and it reinforces a social hierarchy where you are at the bottom. But when you say thank you, you are centering the other person's generosity. Gratitude actually triggers dopamine. It fosters connection and peer-to-peer respect.
That framing completely shifts the power dynamic.
Yeah.
By saying, thank you for your patience, you are still acknowledging the other person you know, communicating the exact same social warmth, but you are doing it from a place of peace and self-assurance.
You're not diminishing yourself to elevate them.
Exactly. As the sources point out, it signals to the room, I see you, and I also see myself.
It removes the hierarchy of the interaction entirely. And this brings us to a broader, honestly more profound application of this linguistic upgrade, because it goes far beyond just being 5 minutes late to a Zoom call. It touches on our fundamental right to exist in new spaces, to learn and to grow without making ourselves tiny.
Which is deeply, deeply relevant to the Skillify audience.
Yeah.
John and Neha point out that so many people who are learning a second language will start a conversation by saying, sorry, my English is bad. Can I ask something?
They are apologizing for the brave, difficult act of acquiring a new skill.
Right. They're pre-apologizing for not being perfect, much like I pre-apologize for my presentation. It's that exact same instinct.
It is.
But the sources suggest being direct and polite without shrinking. Instead of that long, soft, slippery apology, just say, please help me with this, or please explain this part. It is direct, it is respectful, and it completely removes the shame from the equation.
This touches perfectly on what the hosts call shrinking yourself. It's a concept they cover in their word tour segment.
Let's actually dive into that word tour, because analyzing how they define these core concepts for B1 and B2 learners is super revealing.
It is. So let's take that phrase, shrinking yourself.
Right.
They define it as this physical and emotional act of making yourself seem smaller, less important, or less confident to avoid bothering others. When a language learner pre-apologizes, they are shrinking themselves to preempt criticism.
And the antidote to shrinking yourself is another core phrase they highlight, taking up space. I just love that phrase, taking up space.
It's very evocative.
It's almost like linguistic posture.
Yeah.
Just as standing up straight, pulling your shoulders back, and breathing deeply changes your physical confidence, and how people perceive you swapping sorry for thank you forces your language to stand up straight.
The verbal equivalent of good posture. I like that.
Right.
Taking up space means asserting your rightful place in a room or a conversation or a relationship. It means recognizing that you do not need a permission slip to exist, to have needs, or to ask questions.
And the other terms in their word tour really build on this. We already touched on reflex, that automatic, instinctive behavioral response that happens without conscious thought.
Turning a meaningful word like sorry into meaningless verbal background noise.
Exactly. And the final word they focus on is gratitude.
Yeah.
Which they define as shifting energy from guilt to thankfulness.
And what is so compelling about examining all of this through the lens of language learning is the realization that language doesn't just describe our reality, it actively constructs it.
Oh, so say more about that.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, when you constantly use the language of diminishment, the soft slippers, the constant apologies, you build a reality where you are diminished. You train yourself and others to see you that way.
So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Entirely. But when you refuse to shrink yourself and you replace that with the language of gratitude, you construct a reality built on mutual respect. Choosing gratitude over guilt isn't just about sounding better in an email. It's a strategic, confidence-building tool.
It projects self-assurance. It says, I value your time, but hey, I also value my own presence.
Yes, exactly that.
So what does this all mean for us? It means we have to stop punishing ourselves for simply moving through the world. The chair you bumped into earlier today did not need an apology.
It certainly didn't.
The person walking down the hallway who was staring at their phone and bumped into you, they didn't deserve an apology from you.
We have to break the conditioning that tells us our baseline existence is a burden.
We really do. And those soft slippers of constant whispered apologies, they can be traded in right now. In your very next email, in your next meeting, you can put on the confident shoes of gratitude. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your patience.
And remember, every single reflexive sorry that you catch before it leaves your mouth and that you replace with the confident thank you, or even just a simple, clean, comfortable silence, is a small but very real act of choosing to be fully present.
It's a cumulative act of taking up space.
It is a pact you make with yourself to be here exactly as you are without requiring forgiveness for it.
I couldn't agree more.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a final lingering thought, something we haven't discussed yet, but that really puts this whole reflex into perspective.
Oh, I love a good final thought. Lay it on us.
We've talked extensively about clearing away all of these fake reflexive apologies from our daily lives, right? The ones we say to furniture or for minor delays.
Right.
Well, imagine the impact of doing that. If we successfully eradicate the noise, imagine how much heavier, more profound, and more meaningful our words will be on the rare occasions when we actually do owe someone a genuine apology.
Wow. Yeah, if you weren't saying it 100 times a day for no reason, then when you finally say, I am so sorry, the other person actually feels the weight of it.
Exactly. You reclaim the power of the word.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. You made the word mean something again. Well, thank you for joining us on this exploration today. And to you listening, thank you for taking up space with us.
It has been an absolute pleasure to share this time with you.
So next time you bump into that wooden table, just keep walking. You've got confident shoes to wear now. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.